It's 2017, and the internet is having a gold rush. But instead of heading west to dig for gold, everyone is heading online to dig for something called cryptocurrency. Now, imagine this. A new company appears on the scene, Prodeum, and they have idea, a big, beautiful, world-changing idea. Their plan was to use blockchain, which is a super secure digital ledger, to track fruits and vegetables. Yeah, you heard that right. Fruits and vegetables. From the farm to the truck to the grocery store and finally to your kitchen table. You could point your phone at a banana and know its entire life story. Was it organic? Was it picked by happy, fairly paid workers? Prodeum promised you could know. It was going to bring truth and honesty to the global supply chain. It was going to solve world hunger one tracked lemon at a time. And to build this glorious high-tech future, they needed money. So, like every other company at the time, they decided to have an initial coin offering, an ICO. They would create their own digital token, and people could buy it, hoping it would become the next Bitcoin. They built a website. It was fine. It was green. It had pictures of fresh produce. It was filled with all the right-sounding words: transparency, sustainability, disruption. They had a roadmap with vague, exciting milestones. Q2, develop revolutionary blockchain. Q3, partner with major farms. It all sounded so professional, so possible. This was the promise. This was the dream they were selling. For just a few dollars, you could own a piece of the future, a future where you'd never have to wonder about your avocado's past life. In the crazy, buzzing energy of the 2017 crypto rush, this was a dream that was enough to make people stop and look. And for a few, it was enough to make them reach for their wallets. They weren't buying a scam yet. They were buying a promise. And who doesn't want to believe in a promise? Every great scam has a script, a set of instructions its creators follow to the letter. And for the crypto con artists of 2018, that playbook was practically an instruction manual for an initial coin offering, or ICO. The goal wasn't to build a revolutionary new product. It was to build a convincing lie, so shiny, so perfect that it could fool thousands of people. And one of the most infamous examples of this playbook in action was the Prodeum scam. It all started with a website, not just any website, but one that looked like $1 million. A clean design with professional-looking graphics and a snappy slogan: empowering businesses through blockchain. No real details, of course, just big, bold promises. This was the first step. Create an impressive-looking front door to a completely empty house. Next, they wrote a white paper. This is the document that's supposed to explain the project's technology. But the Prodeum team didn't need real technology, they needed a word salad. They filled their white paper with technical-sounding jargon like decentralized ledger, distributed network, and proof-of-stake algorithm. It was a masterpiece of nonsense designed to make investors feel like they were reading something important, even if they couldn't understand a single word. It was meant to impress, not to inform. It was the playbook's master stroke. Then came the roadmap. Every project needs a plan, and the Prodeum team provided one. A colorful chart with milestones stretching far into the future. Q2 2018, platform launch. Q4 2018, global expansion. 2019, mainnet deployment. It was a series of empty promises, perfectly scheduled to convince investors that this was a long-term project, not a quick cash grab. They were selling a future that they never intended to build. And what's a modern-day scam without a strong social media presence? Prodeum's team was everywhere. On Twitter, they posted daily updates about their progress. On Telegram and Discord, they had community managers answering questions and building hype. But if you looked closely, you'd notice something strange. Most of the followers were bots. The engagement was fake. It was all part of the playbook. Create a convincing illusion of a vibrant, excited community to lure in real people. The scammers were essentially talking to themselves, all to make the project seem popular and legitimate. The Prodeum team checked every single box in the scammers' playbook: a sleek website, a confusing white paper, an ambitious roadmap, and a fake social media following. Eager investors, blinded by the promise of easy money, lined up to hand over theirs. But in the end, all they were buying was a blank page with the word Prodeum on it. In the world of crypto scams, the clues are always there. They're just whispers in the wind, easily ignored when the promise of a fortune is so loud. The first place a smart investigator looks is the team behind the project. Prodeum's website had pictures of its founders. They look like serious people, but if you did a simple reverse image search, you'd find something strange. Their faces belonged to stock photos. Their LinkedIn profiles were empty, with no work history or connections that you could actually verify. They were ghosts. They didn't exist. This is the first and most obvious red flag. Real projects have real people with real names and real backgrounds. A real founder has a history, a digital footprint you can follow. These guys had nothing. Then there was the technology. The white paper was a fancy word puzzle, but when you asked the team specific questions on their Telegram channel, their answers were always vague. They spoke in generalities and repeated the same buzzwords over and over. "We're building a decentralized, scalable, secure platform," they'd say. But how? What language? What specific blockchain? The answers were never there. It's a huge clue that the technology is a complete lie.
Prodeum. It was all smoke and mirrors. The excitement was built on promises, not on actual, verifiable progress. These were the ghosts in the machine, the fake faces, the empty words, the missing details. They were all there from the very beginning, waiting to be seen. They were the cracks in the facade, and if anyone had bothered to look closely, they would have seen that the entire thing was a house of cards, built to collapse as soon as the last dollar was collected. After all the careful planning, all the fake websites, all the empty promises, comes the finale. The moment the curtain falls and the scammers make their escape. In the world of ICO scams, this is usually the part where we talk about millions of dollars being stolen. But Prodeum is different. It's January 28, 2018. The Prodeum website is still live. The fake team is still smiling. The Twitter account is still posting its last few messages, a slow, fading drumbeat of fake hope. For the investors who put their money in, the dream is still alive. They're still checking the price, still hoping for that massive gain. This is the final act, the moment of truth, and for the Prodeum scammers, it was stunningly simple. There was no slow disappearance, no complicated plan to move money in secret. All it took was a single keystroke. Somewhere in the world, an anonymous person sat at a computer. They go to the Prodeum website, they log into the site's code, and they press a single button, a single brutal edit. The entire professional-looking website, with its shiny graphics and impressive-sounding words, vanishes. In its place, a simple, white page with just one word in big, bold red letters: penis. And below that word, the next day, a second message appeared: "We are sorry for this shit." That's it. That's the end of the scam. The entire facade, built over months of careful work, was taken down with a single act of digital vandalism. The message was a slap in the face of investors. It was cruel, it was childish, and it was a public declaration that the entire thing had been a big joke. There was no longer any doubt. The project was gone, the money was stolen, and the people who took it weren't even hiding anymore. They were laughing. This is what makes the Prodeum story so remarkable. The exit was as simple and brutal as a single punch. There was no long drawn-out escape, no elaborate plan to cover their tracks. Just a final, shocking message that told everyone what they were too afraid to admit, that they had been played. This final act of disrespect was the last piece of the puzzle, a final, cold insult that proved the scam wasn't just a simple crime. It was a brazen and surprisingly small act of digital performance art. And it all ended with a few simple letters on a white screen. In the hours after the website went dark, a rumor began to spread on the internet. At first, no one believed it. It seemed too ridiculous, too childish to be true. But then, as more and more people checked for themselves, the truth was confirmed. The Prodeum website, the one with the sleek design and the grand promises, was gone. And in its place was a blank white page. On it, in the center, was a single, bold word in a large font: penis. The reaction from the internet was a mix of confusion, disbelief, and then a roar of laughter. How could something so serious, so full of technical jargon and big promises, end with something so simple and absurd? It was a digital middle finger, a final, clear statement that the whole thing was a con. The word penis wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. It was a perfect, bizarre way to end the scam. It was so unexpected that it became the most famous part of the whole story. It was about the way they said goodbye. In the quiet corners of the internet where crypto investors gather, the news of the penis website hit like a lightning bolt. First, there was a screenshot, just one, posted to a popular Reddit group for crypto trading. The title was something simple like, "Is this a joke?" Soon, another user posted the same screenshot, and then another, and then another. And then the threads began to explode. Users started changing their profile pictures to the word penis. Memes began to flood in. One picture showed a person at a desk with money flying out of their computer screen and the Prodeum logo on the monitor. The joke was no longer about the money. It was about the absurd, hilarious way it all ended. On Twitter, the reaction was just as wild. People who had been warning about ICO scams for months came out of the woodwork to say, "I told you so." They shared the screenshot, calling it the perfect symbol of the 2017 crypto bubble. A lot of hype, very little substance, and an ending that was a complete joke. The media, too, couldn't resist. News sites that usually reported on serious business news suddenly had articles with headlines like, "Prodeum scam ends with one-word message." It was a moment of shared laugh at the expense of those who had been fooled. Prodeum was no longer just a failed scam. It had become a meme, a cultural moment. The entire crypto community, even those who lost money, had to laugh. It was a dark and funny ending to a ridiculous story. And in the echo chamber of the internet, that single word echoed for weeks, a permanent stain on the history of the crypto boom. After all the laughter and all the memes, a central question remains. Why? Why did the scammers do it? Why did a professional-looking project end with a one-word message that was a slap in the face to every investor? The Prodeum scam, more than any other, forces us to look at the motive. This is Chapter 8, the why. Every crime story has a final, unanswerable question. Who did it? In the Prodeum scam, the answer is as empty as the website they left behind. This is Chapter 9, the ghost. As soon as the bizarre final message went live, the internet's amateur detectives sprang into action. They started the digital forensics, the search for clues left behind by the creators. They looked at the website's domain registration. Was it in a real name? No, the details were all hidden, a private registration. They checked the server hosts. Was there an IP address they could trace? The scammers used services that made their location impossible to track, like a ghost slipping through walls. And then there were the money trails. Every crypto transaction is written on the blockchain for everyone to see. The money from the scam went into a specific Ethereum wallet address.
Prodeum wasn't a warning about what could go wrong. It was a summary of what already had. It was a funny, childish, and strangely perfect ending. And so, The only thing that remains is that single final message, a crude punchline that forces us to decide for ourselves what the joke was really all about.